Welcome back to another episode of Buckle Up and Ultra Running Conversation. Mandy, you have a 50-mile ultra urban on Sunday this week. What does that look like?
Well, Brian, it looks like I am just kind of like in final preparation and volunteers thinking about food prep tomorrow to fuel runners. I want them to have a really great experience on the course and planning out how we're going to market, which means my 23-mile training run really will probably be me carrying blue flags and sticking flags along this urban course.
Ooh, I like blue flags. I like blue flags better than orange ones. We've had this conversation in the past.
You did tell me about the blue flags. I have blue flags. Yeah, just in final race prep. Really excited. This trail covers Fort Collins through Tamed, Windsor, and Greeley. And it just got completed. It's been like 50, 60 years in the making of completing this trail on the Poudre River in northern Colorado, which really is where a lot of people settled northern Colorado. So a lot of settlements and farmers. So it's a pretty historical trail, and we're just honored to get to host an event on it. So I'm excited.
It's a 50 miler, but I believe you have a couple different options, like relay options and shared entertainment, all that kind of stuff. Pretty par for the course for you, I believe.
Yeah, we're doing that. There's a 100-mile option to respect closed trail times because it is all urban. There's a 100-mile option, but it's virtual. So you could put in your 50 miles anytime, 7 days before or after the race. So we will have, I would imagine, a handful of runners out there doing 50 miles on their own on Saturday on this course, and then join us for the in-person experience on Sunday. Yeah,
that's amazing. How many do you have registered?
I think we're like roughly 75 so
all
far.
Right.
So pretty small for a Run Windsor Miles Beyond race. Normally our races are like 400 to 1,500 people, but this distance is pretty lofty, and the trail just got completed.
It's not your 5K, so.
It's not your 5K. But yeah, we're excited. I think it has legs, though. I really do think it has room to grow. It makes.
And what year is it? Like, how many years have you done it so far?
Year 2.
Okay, yeah. So it's early. Like, you got time to grow with this thing.
Yeah, it's early, and it's an interesting concept. So when you say like urban relay, it's just really hard for people to grasp that concept. But it makes, what I like about it is I'm so interested in making ultra running accessible. You don't have to run 300 miles across the state of Arizona to be an ultra runner. So what I really like to do is introduce it to people in kind of bite-sized pieces where they can see their crew in an urban setting, in cities, have access to gas stations and grocery stores if they need it, and kind of take away that intimidation factor that comes along with what it looks like when we're planning our trail ultra races, which are pretty adventurous and very different than what I'm talking about.
Sure, I'm thinking like a Ragnar style, right? I mean, like you got a little van and you got your 4, 5, 6, whatever it is, the number is of teammates, and you're out there wearing your funky pink tank top with a tutu, and you're meeting everybody at the gas station or the aid station, and you're switching. I'm doing the next leg. You just ran the previous leg, and I run this leg for, I don't know, 5, 6 miles, and then I don't get to run for another 4 or 5 sections before I have to get back out of the van and go do it again, right?
Yeah, it's pretty simple. This one we have 12 legs, so it's very small, 2 to 4 runners. But if you need to hit up a coffee shop in the middle, you can probably find one a half a mile down the road. So that's what I want to.
You made a reference to about running across Arizona for 300 miles or something. Where'd you even come up with that idea from?
We have a friend that did the Arizona Monster 100 day after day after day after day.
That's right. Simon Guerard is our guest today. He was obviously one of the co-hosts of this podcast on the first 60 episodes. We briefly touch on it, and then Mandy jumped in and has taken the reins since. And we are over 100. I don't know, 105, 107. I don't know what episode it is, but we interview Simon, and we talk about his most recent accomplishment, the Arizona Monster 300, which he finished roughly about 10 days ago.
Yeah, you guys know Simon. He likes to document and be super honest and transparent about everything that he does. And this one might have tested some new limits, some cool takeaways from him on where he really was I could keep going. And then really, if you would have told me I'm done, I'd be happy with that. But really pushed through his continued injuries and updates us on how that's all feeling, where the wheels kind of fell off the bus. But even more so, when the wheels fall off the bus, sometimes you find spare wheels to put on and keep going. And I really think he pulled into that this time.
You you started out with a dually, right? One of those dually diesel trucks, and then you just lose tires, but luckily you have like a spare already on there.
Yeah. Pulling into an aid station, literally putting the wheels back on the bus.
Yeah, totally. It's a great analogy. Anyway, Simon's the guest. I like this long form stuff with Simon, quite honestly. I appreciated it when we talked to other guests on the podcast, but just kind of like have that little bit longer of a conversation. Simon does have a lot of transparency with his YouTube channel and all the things he produces, but it's a singular kind of voice, right? It's not an open conversation where this format's just a little bit different. So I really appreciate that. Gosh, you'll hear all about it in the episode, his struggles, how he pushed through, what's next for Simon. Thanks for tuning in, guys. We really appreciate you being here. Like, listen, follow, subscribe, and share with your running community. Simon Guerard from Running with Simon. Welcome back to the show, Simon. It's been a while.
It's been almost a year. I missed you guys. How have you been?
We're doing great. We got the show on the road still. We got the train on the tracks. I think this will probably be like 107 or 106 episodes. Wow. Gosh, I think you were around for the first 60, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, it's been a full minute, but we're obviously all friends, and we all still keep in touch and communicate pretty regularly outside of the show. So nothing new in our little worlds that we all kind of know what's going on with ourselves. But yeah, welcome back to the show.
Yeah, glad to be back.
Simon, one thing I've never asked Brian, I've never asked how his knees are doing.
That's so copyright. That's good. You're not allowed.
You might have to ask him. We might have to bring that back just for this one episode.
Yeah, no, I mean, I know his knees are fine. That's the only thing that is fine, right?
Actually, that's a fair assessment, Simon. There's a lot of truth in that. My knees are fine. I am on the mend. Gosh, that episode will come out next week, but I talked with a guy that had a similar surgery to the one procedure that I just had on my foot. So that's a whole big, deep rabbit hole. But I am, generally speaking, on the mend. I'm doing really well. I'm 12 days out from surgery. I'm down to one crutch. I'm putting a little bit of weight on the foot. I'm still in an air cast. Yeah, making great progress and ready to get back to running someday soon.
Yeah, I heard Nora was telling me that you were following closely when I was running Munster because you had nothing better to do. Just watching my little dot move.
I would have followed along anyway, but I did have a lot more time on my hands. And so I did watch all the dots, more so than I probably would have otherwise. Yes. Yeah. 300 is, the last race you just had. I want to say you finished. I guess I had surgery that Friday when you started.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so I guess you're 12 days out from starting. So roughly 8 days. No, what is that? 8 days out from finishing?
Math is tough. It's been like a week since I'm back, basically. Something like that. It feels much longer though already. Like I feel so much better than, the day after the race or the hours after the race where you feel like you're dying. Now it's okay. I'm just suffering. It's much better.
Let's talk about that for a minute. Let's talk about the first 48 hours after the finish line. Let's just start at the tail end of this thing. Like, what does the first 48 hours feel like? I mean, like, do you feel like you just got hit by a train or what's going on?
Yeah, I mean, when you're racing a race like that, honestly, 300 miles, my conclusion is 300 miles too long for me. I had no joy whatsoever in the last, I would say, 100 miles. I was very much ready to just be done. There was nothing like, oh, I can't wait to see that segment. Someone would have said like, surprise, like it's over. I was like, oh no, I paid for 300 miles, please. But I would be very excited about it. But you keep telling yourself, there's maybe like 12 more hours and then I'm done and then the pain is done. But I know it's a lie. I know that by the time I cross that finish line, the pain just doesn't go away. In fact, sometimes it's much worse because now you sit down, now you kind of take time to like assess the damage a little bit. So first 48 hours were pretty bad. But the worst was that I finished probably around, I don't know, 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning.
2 in the morning, Arizona time, because I think it was around 2:45, 3 a.m. that I saw the alert come up on my phone.
Yeah, and then, we eat a little bit, drive back. Well, Nora drove back fortunately. And then I had to work. So I was on calls probably at like 8 a.m. Immediately afterwards. Yeah, I was not doing so great. And somehow I magically, like the first few hours, I was able to work pretty efficiently. And then like I had a significant crash, super tired, huge headache, difficult to go through the day. And I was going through kind of bouts of falling asleep, then being able to work a little bit, fall asleep, work a little bit. It was not great. It was not great, but we came through. And the worst by far was I had tendonitis on my left leg. It's the one that's been injured before, so I was pretty worried about that. It was very swollen, very painful for the first few days. Now at least it's not swollen, and it's probably how it was before the race, which is not 100%, but not terrible also. So it's already much better.
Wow, Simon, jumping right back into work right after. I mean, I think like that's probably not the ideal situation, but when we remove ourselves from our normal lives for, you know, however many days it takes to run these events, you kind of have to pick and choose like the front and the back end of resuming work and life schedules. So it's pretty ambitious, but it sounds like you kind of just have to do it. Like so I'm curious, the drive time. So you crossed the finish line and you really did get in the car and drove straight back to California. Yeah.
Oh, no. We drove back to Tucson. So it was what, an hour and a half, maybe from there. Yeah, no, otherwise I don't know how that would have been possible because Nora also was pacing me the last segment. So I don't think she could have drove the whole way.
Okay, that sounds a little more realistic. I was like, well, that's going to be a really long drive for you guys straight after the finish.
Not exactly safe. So
and then you guys worked remote for the next day.
We can work remote. So Nora works fully remotely. And she was actually like, shout out to Nora, my wife, who crewed me for the whole race and then paced me for the last segment. She was working full time during that time. During the day, she was working. So she had to kind of find ways to be at the aid station to crew me, and then it's back to work remotely. She works fully remote. For me, it's usually I have to be in person, but I can take my calls on the road, which is exactly what I did. Actually, like thinking back, it's kind of crazy because my last work call was the Friday of the race that morning. So I finished the call, got dressed in my little suit, then went to the race, and then as soon as I'm done, I basically hop back on a call. Yeah, I need sponsorship. Okay, I need to get rid of my full-time job because this is not sustainable in the slightest.
Like you're pretty well known, at least in our little friend circle. I don't know if it's like hugely popular across your channel and stuff like that, but you're usually well known for this type of like really tight scheduling where you have to be somewhere. So what was the game going to be if you didn't finish by I don't even know what morning that was. Was it Thursday morning that you finished?
Yeah, I would have let someone else just take over that call. It wouldn't have been super good, but it could have been done. At the same time, I mean, I finished it, I think, 35 hours. I was really not expecting to do anything more than that. I felt that already that was a pretty slow time. And when you think about it, I was mostly injured for 260 miles. So it would have been hard to do much slower based on my fitness level, really. If anything slower than that would probably have been a DNF, because the reason I'm going so slow is because there's something going terribly wrong. But yeah, I mean, I do that. Fortunately, I have I have an ambitious kind of work kind of situations. You kind of don't have a choice. You can't go part-time. You can't do partial and these things. You have to be on top of your game. And that's kind of the deal that I have, that I can do these races, but I have to find ways to not let it affect my work significantly.
I was going to say it's kind of refreshing because I think so many of us, we deal with that. We're finding ways to puzzle piece this all together, and it's not beautiful and it's not perfect. So we love that part of the story. You know that. I mean, I think you and Brian started this podcast out talking about that, like the everyday athlete and these cool stories. It was a fun journey to watch, but let's like back it up a little bit. Like, did you want to start anywhere else in the race? Can we start back at the beginning? Like, how did things start out for this race?
No.
Let's like paint a bigger picture real fast. So you've done like, I think that's 65 now. I'm taking a shot in the dark, but is that 6,500s or roughly 62? 62? Okay.
Like that, yeah.
A hugely fair amount. I don't even know what that is. It's 4 times what I've ever done. But you've done 62 100 plus mile distance events in the last 5.5 years, right? 6 years. So a huge accomplishment. I think that comes out to 14 or 15 a year. That's an average, of course. So some years have probably been more. Some years have been right at it, maybe a few less. But more recently, You've been kind of slowing down and kind of dealing with this injury, kind of working through it. So a little bit of a different lead up and approach to the Monster 300 than you're usually typically used to, which is like race, rest, race, rest, race in previous years. Am I pretty close on that?
The build up for it was a little bit scary, I would say, because I was signed up for, well, no, that's not true. I didn't sign up, but I was planning to do quite a few other races this year. And I decided not to even sign up or register until last minute. And last minute, I decided, no, I'm not going to even try these 100 mile. I was supposed to be at Jackpot Ultra. We went there, we volunteered, but I decided not to race it because I felt my body was not ready. And that's 1 month before the Monster. So everything was all about recovery, healing, and putting my body in a good position. Lining up for the race, I honestly didn't know how it would go. It's always stressful and challenging to know how a 300 mile would go. But I didn't know if I would make it to the second aid station at mile 30 or something like that. Like if my body would totally break down or not. And I had bad experience. We met at across the year, and across the year didn't go well for me. It went well at first, and then I started having my issue with my foot drop that changed my gait, and this change in my gait led to a secondary injury, which made me barely finish 100 mile limping. So obviously, if that would have happened at mile 60 on a 300 miler, that would have been game over for sure. So I was pretty nervous about it, and yeah, the focus was coming in healthy, coming in like strong as possible, and accepting that maybe things won't go my way this time. It's not like a check the box kind of race. It was pretty totally unknown, and focusing on what I could manage. And I think what went very well in this race is I'm pretty knowledgeable of trail, I think, and how to take care of my body more, I guess, than the average runner at this race. So the heat, fluid, these things, I had that dialed down. So it wasn't an issue. The real only issue was my ankle, and that's the only thing I focused on during the race.
Yeah, it seemed like day one there was a lot of attrition due to that heat. I want to say it was in excess of 95 plus or 100 plus degrees. I'm not quite sure exactly, depending on probably where you're at in the course. But day one seemed to really have a ton of attrition. Again, I was watching all the trackers and all the little dots. Lots of time on my hands.
Straight away.
I mean, the first day was definitely I don't know that it was practically the toughest one, but some people came in with that. There's a segment that I think was 22 miles maybe, with a lot of gain in the middle of the day. And some people had something like 2.5 liter, which is ridiculously low. I had 5 liters and I drank almost all of it. I gave a little bit to someone else who was struggling. But if you have half of that, you're going to be running maybe 3-4 hours without any fluid, and for sure you're blowing up. So it was a little surprising that for a race like that you expect more kind of a graduate type of runner that has been there, done that, to witness that. Like people that don't seem to understand how to manage fluid and salt intake and run into trouble from that itself. Luckily, that's a non-issue for me. It's always an issue, but I knew what I needed and enough to even have a little bit of backup. And it reminded me, when we raced Cocodona together, that segment to Crown King or Lane Mountain, it was exactly the same kind of vibe where you had people kind of way ahead of me at first, and then you catch up to them going what you feel is pretty slow, and you realize they don't have water, they're puking. I was like, wow, this is a really bad situation. And you give them a little bit, but there's only so much you can do without putting yourself in a bad situation too. But yeah, so first day was going I was very, very strong. I mean, the fact that I haven't been racing so much, I think also meant that my body was well rested, and I had some flashback of when I used to be a good runner, a strong runner. Back in my days when I had the big buckle for Leadville without struggling too much and doing sub 24, no problem. And like my 16-hour, 100 mile, like I felt like that. It felt really good up to when it didn't. And I was running. So I was walking first, but eventually I was running with Anne, who finished, I think, second maybe in the female. And we were just chatting. We ran at least 10, 20 miles together. So I was probably in the top 10. Having a blast. And when she told me that she did last year 105, I was like, oh man, I gotta not hang out too much with you because I'm gonna blow up. But I still feel good right now. So who knows?
Yeah, you're talking about Ann Tisdale, who won the inaugural Monster 300 last year, the first rendition of it. It was a noon start, right? So that sort of helps, right? With that first day heat. At least you're already to high noon, and it might get a little warmer, but at least you haven't been out for 8 or 4 or 5 hours already in the morning.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about it. I think we were all sitting at the start line because you have to get there like to get your tracker and everything. It's like 10 a.m., 10:30. I'm like, hey man, like can I just go now? Like I won't win. Like I won't win by 1.5 hours. Like Candice, let me go. Let the pro do their thing and start at noon. But like I'll just start trotting around because it felt like you're in the heat a little bit. You're just waiting. You're awake, and you know you're gonna be sleep deprived at some point. And I feel that the clock is ticking until like from the start of the morning when I took my work call. And yeah, maybe I would have preferred like an 8 a.m. start. But you're right. Doing that whole segment in the middle of the day would have been a little harder.
Yeah, that's interesting because even if you start at noon, like your natural, unless you're training to wake up later in the day and you're able to wake up later, like your body's still going and you're thinking and the energy and the conditions, you're still out there in the heat. So that's a pretty good point. But the level of exertion isn't as bad. So
yeah, no, that's true. And you also, I think what was helpful with starting at noon is that you knew how hot it would be. You like if you start at 6 in the morning, maybe like you feel like it's not so hot, so you're not as worried about it. But we're in the middle of the day, we're sweating, just sitting down and feeling like, yeah, okay, that's gonna be a hot one. Like you got to be careful because I was not there last year, but I think it was particularly hot this year. Of course, you expect it to be hot around Tucson that time of the year, but I think it was hotter than you would actually predict. That was my take.
Yeah, totally. It seemed like it was hotter this year, just conversation-wise from last year, from those people that have experienced both and just sheer numbers of relative temperatures of good estimates. Yeah, day one, looking at the tracker and watching it, yeah, I was like, man, Simon's ready to race. You were like top 10. You were right up there. It sounds like you were talking with Anne a bit. You were just knocking it out of the park. And I was like, yeah, here we go. I started a text thread with Nora and I just kind of kept it open on the side because I had a lot of time on my hands.
Yeah.
So you kind of survived the afternoon or the heat of the day. What does night one look like for you?
There were so many rattlesnake that first night. It was crazy. At least we were not sleep deprived by then. Oh gosh, me and Anne, she almost stepped on one at one point and like it coiled and like was really pissed. So I kind of went around the snake and bushwalking a little bit when I missed a turn. Also, there was one somewhere in the bush that must have been pretty close. I haven't seen it, but it was very, very close to me. And I don't know, it was sketchy a little bit. I don't think anyone was bitten, but you could tell that they were there, and that really kind of triggered your mind in the future to always look out for them. And it's crazy how much a branch can look like a snake, and vice versa. Unfortunately, a snake looks like a branch. I freaked out without the F word, basically the whole race, especially when you start being more tired, like you get jump scared by a branch, like, oh my God, I almost stepped on it. I was like, oh, actually, that is a branch. That would have been okay. But yeah, I mean, it was just so frequent. And that kind of stayed in my mind also when it comes to sleeping. I like to take trail nap, but that didn't feel like the place I want to take a trail nap because being bitten on the ankle is probably not great from a rattlesnake. Being bitten on the neck or the face is, that's how you die, and that would happen probably when you're trying to lay down and there's one there. So I was hesitant to like even stop when I was on the trail. I refocused on getting to the aid station, and because of that also at almost every major aid station taking the time to lay down, remove my shoes and sleep if I could, so that on the trail I could actually go the whole way. But yeah, I mean, the first night also felt so good that it was fresher, but that's where trouble started for me. That's where I started feeling a little bit my ankle and my left feet. It was not my ankle, it was my anterior tibialis getting a little bit inflamed and starting to feel that kind of tiredness. And that's the injury that triggered my kind of big injury afterwards and my foot drop. So that was particularly worrisome. And that's when I saw Nora for the first time, I think. And I told her, like, I know it looks like I'm moving well on the tracker, but like actually for the past 5 miles, I've really struggled with my anterior tibialis, and I need to decide right now, like, am I dropping right now or I'm continuing? Because I know I can continue more, but am I hurting it? And that was a tough decision, honestly. And it's a decision that I made gradually. At first, it was like, okay, let's reach 75 miles and 100 miles and then 125 miles. But it was always like, maybe I should be dropping right now. Maybe I should be dropping. But eventually I made the decision, look, I'm going to finish this race. But there was a big question mark as to if it was smart or not for me to finish. And that started at around 45.
When you're making that decision, Simon, and just talking about this injury specifically, is there anything you're doing to treat it at the aid stations? Obviously, you're changing your gait and you're being aware of how you're running, but is there anything else you're doing to treat this to try to prevent further damage?
Yeah, a little bit. So I was trying as much as possible to elevate it. As soon as I saw a medic, I had them put some KT tape so that it would kind of lock a little bit in place, and I knew that would reduce the burden of kind of the dorsiflexion.
Mm-hmm.
So I was hoping that this would be enough, but at the same time, you're always wondering, am I hurting it right now? And it's not so much the pain. Like, the pain is not great, but I think we've all dealt with pain before. Blisters are painful, chafing is painful, but that's fine. This is temporary. Something like that, what was really difficult mentally is that you're really wondering, like, is this really dumb? And I've been good in the past, except that one time where I had anterior tibialis issue and I decided to push through it, and then that led to a 1-year injury that I'm only coming back from, and now it's happening. It was a different kind of pain, different area, but the same muscle or the same tendon. So I was like, like that's not great. And that really, that was tough mentally. And quite frankly, I don't know right now if it was the right decision or not. I know it was definitely a little bit gambling to push through it, but at some point you have to decide, because you can't second guess every time you make a step. Like that's just extremely toxic when you're tired.
That's really early on into the event. I mean, gosh, if you're 50, I'm just rounding numbers here, but if you're 50 miles in, you still have 250 to go.
Mm-hmm.
Like, where does the drive come from to, really want to like continue on, like, and motivation and all those things just kind of go out the window? Here you are, like top 10. I don't know if you were aware of that while you're in the event itself, but as far as the dot goes, you were top 10. And then like people are just slowly creeping by you a little bit, right? You start to move a little bit towards the back of that pack.
Yeah, and it took time for people to actually catch up because it's a slow race, but you can tell your pace, and like I'm not on pace with other people. The drive to finish, I don't know. I've always been very stubborn, and I know that that's something I need to be careful, because I know I can push through injury and really mess myself up. Like, I know some people are really staying hard and everything. It's like that. Usually these people actually end up DNFing a hell of a lot. I'm not like that. I'm someone who tends to just not say these things, but to also be very stubborn and do it and say like, we'll fix issues later, which is what led to my prior injury. I think for me, what kind of drove me, it's a few different things. First, there was definitely the fact that Nora was there to support me, and I felt like I didn't want to let her down. I didn't want to feel like, and I know she would be like, well, that's silly, Simon, but I didn't want to feel like you drove all the way here to support me, and then after 12 hours of racing, I'm calling it quit. Like, that felt like, come on, like at least try a little bit. The second piece to that, it's all of the effort that I put to be there, all of the training, but also the rehab and the PT and all of these things. I felt like if I drop now, I won't really know how well these things went. Like, if I drop at the first sign of adversity, then what do I do next time? Like, next time I'm gonna have pain again. So I had to kind of see it through and accept the fact that potentially that will be an injury. But I have to know. I want to know if we're there or not. And that is scary, but I felt that not running that experiment, not pushing through and pulling the plug too soon in that case would just not have served any purpose. And I think the last piece was, there was definitely in my mind a little bit of, okay, like, here we go again, 2026 season is over already. But I felt, look, if it's over already, might as well finish this race and then we'll deal with the issue later. But, I'm going to do it and then we're going to call the season over. But if I stop right now, the season is over anyway. So what's the point of quitting? So that was all of these things running through me. And quite frankly, in a 130-hour race, like, you have a lot of time to think about these things, unfortunately, and second guess yourself a lot. But here we are.
Let's dive a little bit into day 2 then, Simon. The sun comes up. I want to say you're probably 70 miles down the trail, road, whatever it might be. You haven't hit Mount Lemmon yet. I believe that's a little bit later. Maybe that's even 2 nights. So what does day 2 look like? And how's everyone feeling? How are you feeling?
Yeah, I think day 2, morale-wise, for me was by far the worst. Because, I'm still, all of what we talked about, like, that's the only thing I'm thinking about for the next 24 hours. We're still in the phase where people around me feels relatively good. And you can see that. Like, it's like, man, I'm the only one really struggling right now. Partly because, the one that were really struggling were way behind and they dropped already. But the people passing me were people, in the top 10, top 15, and they are fresh. They just go through the aid station very quickly. They're happy, they're peppy, they're joking, and you're just like, well, I'm injured, and like you feel like, okay, like one of us doesn't belong here, and it seems to be me right now. So that was rough. And then, of course, it's the day, it's getting hot, and we went through a lot of segments that were with a lot of cactus, but these cactus that like kind of detach when it's windy, and it was windy the night before. So the the trail, and I was still relatively up front, the trail was littered with these like balls of cactus. And that created a perfect freaking storm because my ankle was so swollen that I had only one pair of shoes that I could use, but they were not trail shoes. They were gravel shoes, which the midsole is kind of soft. So when I stepped on these, it went right through and it poked my heel and my toes, and like that was really not fun. And I'm starting to be sleep deprived a little bit, so I don't notice them as much, and then I just step on it. You don't notice, you run, and it's like, hey, there's something like itchy under my heel. Then you realize, oh wow, like there's like something poking on there. So you remove it. And same with the snake, it plays with your mind. It's the same. The parallel I give is if you get bitten by a mosquito, all of a sudden it's itchy everywhere and you feel you have mosquito all the time. It's the same thing. So as soon as I found one for real, I always had a little bit of pain on my toe. I was like, oh, there must be a needle. And then you stop, you try to remove it, you don't find anything. I was like, okay, I guess there's nothing. And when there is something, you actually don't notice until it's kind of pretty late and pretty painful. It was this whole kind of mess. Every time I was seeing Nora, I was trying to like change my shoes, but it wouldn't work. I just couldn't put my feet inside. I was like, all right, I guess we're continuing with these old shoes. But yeah, that was kind of a disaster. Made good progress, and slowly but surely, what felt good, and I told my PT that one time, I felt good because all of a sudden it's like I have a little bit of knee pain, and now I have a little bit of Achilles pain. Like, finally, like you have my injury that's painful, but the other things are like creeping up, which means like maybe this is not so bad. Like it's as bad as everything else. So the globality of me suffering made me feel like, okay, we're back to normal. My heel are painful, my feet are painful. Oh, the blisters are annoying right now. It's like good. Like I'm not thinking about my anterior tib anymore. Maybe because it's not so bad. So that kind of helped me up to where we did Lemon, and that's where like things really changed for the better, or for the not worse, I would say.
So Lemon's like 125 in, it looks like on the map. I'm trying to see.
I think so. Lemon was like 125 is when you're at the top. So
so slightly before, yeah.
I finished like the afternoon, I think, climbing Lemon, and then I was going down. To be fair, everything is blurry between day 1 and day 6. So it might be the second day, it might be the third day. I'm not really sure, but I think that was the second day. No, maybe that was the third day actually.
115 miles in is the aid station before Lemon.
Yeah, I must have reached that 48 hours, something like
potentially.
That. Yeah.
Either way, when you get to Lemon, so you did you hit summit? I guess at sunset is what it sounded like.
A little bit before that, actually. It was probably mid-afternoon, and I was able to sleep a little bit. Yeah, and no, that felt really good to be there, to be with Nara, and that's when I climbed Lemon. That's where I did when I was at the summit. That's where I told Nora, like, like I'm finishing this. I'm just gonna go aid station by aid station. Right now, I stopped asking myself, can my anterior tib do 300 mile and like whatever, like 180 mile left? Like that would have killed my mind. Instead, I'm going to ask myself, can I make it to the next aid station? And very often that's 15 mile, 20 miles. That's how you need to race these races. In the context of an injury, that, that's why I was not thinking like that. But otherwise, that's why I said, okay, as long as I can make it to the next one, I'm going to make it to the next one. And then we're going to reassess. And basically me making that decision was me making the decision, I'm finishing this race pending disaster. And it's also where the cutoff kind of switch a little bit. They're not exactly aggressive, but you kind of need to move up to, I would say, Lemon or maybe even 150. And after that, you can go 1 mile an hour and you're good to go. Like the race is 170 hour. The last 100, 150 mile, you don't really need to hurry. You just need to keep moving. And I knew that. Everyone was talking about it. So as soon as I kind of reached that, I felt, look, I can do it. It's not a matter of time. It's a matter of just going. And that was the mindset. That felt really good to reach that for these reasons, like for the kind of switch.
Yeah, and I'm sure it plays into like the mental perspective of it, right? You're not stressing about it. You're maybe not so down and hard on yourself and like the boohoo, like I'm injured, am I going to make it? And as soon as you shift the mind into that, like we're just going to do this, we're going to do it, and we're just going to do it bite by bite, aid station by aid station, and just slowly chip away at it. And it's kind of freeing, right? It kind of it gives you some more space to breathe and enjoy the experience.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you change from like, can I do it, to how can I do it? And I know how I can do it. So as soon as I stop asking myself, like, is it a good idea or not? and then it was pretty simple. So yeah, I mean that was very, very satisfying. But at the same time, it's still, it's still 180 miles to go, which is a lot. And it's easy to think when you haven't run these like longer event that, well, it's just 50 mile left in the race. Like 50 mile is almost nothing in a race like that. But 50 mile is still 50 mile, and one segment is enough to totally wreck you if you mismanage it. In fact, I think it might have been coming down from Lemon, probably because it's coming down. But that's where I start having pretty bad blisters. And that it comes from, I don't really have severe blister. Like, it's kind of fine, to, oh my gosh, like I can barely walk anymore. And that's one segment. And you finally reach the aid stations, like, oh my gosh, like this is terrible. Like, please, like I can't take that level of damage from one aid station to the next one. Like, you need to be sustainable. But yeah, it's not always the case. And the downhill really was, I think technically or like in terms of pain, that was probably the worst. Like mentally, going up Lemon, everything before Lemon and going up Lemon was my worst. Coming down Lemon was physically the worst, and then everything else was just a drag.
Yeah, so I wanted to touch a little bit at this stage in the race. Nora's out there crewing you. Was she your only crew and only pacer throughout the entirety of the race?
No, she was not. So yeah, I should probably give shout out to everyone. We had also Marcel, who offered to crew. He crewed that mile, I want to say 170. That's where it's all blurry. But you had like the bike lane, and then he was at the aid station in the middle of that. So he was there supporting also. I think it's Tom, Nicole's wife, was there supporting. So that was really helpful. At first, because Nora couldn't be there because of work, but also just seeing different face and having people kind of take care of you and taking some of their time. That was great. And also the bike lane, what's interesting is people are in Tucson and they know the race is happening. So some people just came along and was like, hey, like, do you mind if I walk with you? I was like, sure. Like, I mean, I'm gonna be bitching, but if you want to hang out, I'm happy to hang out. And it felt good to kind of have these, like, it's not pacer, but like someone sharing some miles with you. Sometimes it's just like 10, 15, 20 minutes, but just having someone to talk to, that felt pretty good. And then eventually there's two guys that kind of randomly joined towards the end of that segment. And then there was, there's two guys that joined me just for a few miles there. That was really, really appreciated. They were not, again, officially pacer, but they were kind of there. I was like, hey, like, you look like you're struggling. Do you want us to tag along? I was like, yeah, I would love that. So shout out to all of these people. That was wonderful. Wonderful to have help.
Was that a daytime section for you? I'm sure everyone hit it at a different part of the race, but was
that
a daytime
all
section for you?
Freaking daytime, yeah. The whole bike lane was from sunrise to sunset. Oh. That was kind of my day, yeah.
So I think I talked to you during that section.
You did. That was that was a great surprise, actually. I mean, you're very creative about finding me out there. So it was with through Brady and like his pacer, and that was really, really nice. Yeah, I really appreciated that.
Yeah, I had no idea. I mean, I think I was texting with Nora, and I think she was feeling like, I'm so bummed I can't be out there with him. I'm so worried about him. I know he's injured, and so I was, with like Brian, I'm like dual screens looking at the tracker, and I saw that you were exactly in the same spot as Brady, who my friend Caleb was pacing. And I think I just sent you and Nora and Caleb a connecting text of just like, you guys are near each other. Surely you've met. If you haven't, you should meet. Your athletes are like right next to each other. And then then Caleb FaceTimed me, and you were in the background talking to Brady. So it seemed like you guys shared some miles. It looked hot though. That was on the bike path, and it did not look nice and cool and breezy.
No, it was super hot. There was also someone, I don't know if they worked for Destination Trail or volunteer for Destination Trail, but there was a girl on a bike that was kind of going back and forth and handing a handbag or Ziploc bag of ice, and that was super appreciated. For me, what was so frustrating with that segment is I know that in a normal context, I could have run a lot of it or, shuffle, but now I was kind of pity walking the whole thing at the 3 mile per hour pace, which is super slow. It's only like 40 miles. Could have done that in I don't know, like 10 hours normally. Like even in the context of the 200 mile, if my feet and my ankle was not messed up, I would have decided like, look, this is the time, like I'm pushing through that. And I would have probably shed a little bit of like, I had so much gear, but knowing that I could go through quickly, shed a lot of that, maybe just have a little belt. There's a lot of water fountain and just like zoom through, but I knew that was not an option. So then I was just like slowly moving and thinking, what was their idea? Like that was not my favorite segment. Can I say that? Is that allowed to say? That was not my favorite segment.
Well, let's get right to it then. After that, the course doesn't change really much after the bike path section, after Mount Lemon. Later in the race, you said you got to 200 and you could have been done if they said this was the finish line. And that last 100 miles is, gosh, it's a third of the race. I mean, like it's a full 100 miles. Like people are racing 100 miles and you have 100 left. And the terrain doesn't change that much. I mean, did that kind of get into your head too a little bit? There wasn't much challenging terrain anymore.
Done with it. Like there's the landscape changed a little bit. So like I tried to appreciate that because the landscape was a little bit more favorable in that second 100 miler than the first one. So it was a little bit more milder weather. The cacti were not the one that would be on the road. There were not as many freaking rattlesnake and like these things were like, but gosh, like it's the desert. Like it's the desert. That's what you're doing. And you're just like, I'm done with that. Like, I don't want to see another one of those segment, but they were very repetitive. And in my mind, like I need to put the movie together and I need to watch the footage because it's all a blur. Like, I just remember going from one aid station to the next one. And eventually Nora is there. I'm laying down and sleeping there. Nora did me a trick. Actually, she didn't do it on purpose, but Nora is more anxious than me in general. So she will be worried about me being injured, right? I mean, I'm sure she texted you that. And usually I'm more like, yeah, it's fine. No, don't worry about it. But I arrived at an aid station she was supposed to be at, and she was not there. And based on the time of the day, there were no reason why she shouldn't be there. Like, it was not, say, the middle of the day where she's working. It was, I think, the morning. And she was just not there. And I was like, huh. Like, I wonder if something happened. Like, did she have an accident? And I started being worried about her a little bit more. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do my things and hopefully she'll just kind of appear. And she didn't. I was like, oh, now I'm starting to be really worried. But it turned out she just kind of like missed me. And then she came and she was like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And I was like, that's fine. That gives me 30 more minutes of like resting. I'm very okay with that. No problem. And now I understand why you're so nervous, because when you can't do anything or you don't have the information, you feel powerless. And that's very much how I felt. Like, oh my God, like what's going on? Like, I need to find out, but I can't. So yeah.
You gave a shout out to a couple of guys that helped you out. Looks like you met some new friends on the bike path, on that bike lane section. And then Nora obviously crewed for you the whole event, except for that 30-minute section that she was late for.
Yeah.
But surprisingly, she jumped in for the last, I want to say it's like 18 miles or something along those lines. And so, and that wasn't planned, but how did that come to fruition?
I think we had the same idea at the same time, where I arrived at that last aid station feeling really bad. That last segment, people were catching up to me significantly. I think like 3-4 people passed me. Whereas the rest of the race, honestly, like you have a segment that will last 10 hours and you don't see anyone. I know that on the map, it looks like someone is close to me, but they're 1 mile away and I will never see them. But in this case, like people were just zooming past me. My blisters, my ankle, everything was super painful. I was very much ready to be done. And I arrived there just before sunset. And I kept thinking, like it's just a segment of 16 mile, or I don't know how much, 15 mile. I'm going to be done before tomorrow morning. Like, it would be great if Nora is like available to pace me, because she can do it. Of course, she won't have slept for the next day of work, but then again, neither will I, so who cares? And then when I arrived, she was dressed up differently, like dressed up a little bit more like a runner. I was like, oh, like maybe she is pacing me. And then we chatted a little bit, and then we agreed to go and do it together, which was, I mean, that was great. That was very, very much needed, because that last segment actually turned out to be very problematic for me. At first, I was doing great, and it felt like, okay, like it's in the pocket, it's all done, but there was a cattle gate and there was a metal bar that I didn't see that you need to lift your feet above, but I just slammed it, kicked it full strength. I would describe it as the equivalent of someone taking a baseball bat and hitting me on the leg, and I hit it exactly where my tendonitis was. So I basically fell down and then was in pain for the last 5 miles, barely able to walk. That was a little stressful and painful. It was not great. Yeah. I had zero pleasure doing that. If that had happened, I think a segment before I might have DNF'd at 285, honestly. It was that level of bad. So I was very, very concerned with with it, and then it swelled, and it was all of the issues were compound like a 2-3x compared to before. It was a huge difference. So having her with me felt reassuring, at least.
Well, I was about to ask what the dynamic was like for those last 18 miles before you hit the cattle guard.
Yeah, it was nice. It was,
what was it like? Because I would imagine after that, it's just her completely keeping you going.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was relatively joyful and just chatting, and me telling her like, look, like I'll finish. It's no problem. I'm complaining a little bit, but not too much. And we were just trying to talk a little bit, not a little bit, a lot, nonstop, so that I wouldn't fall asleep. Because that was my main concern: is I would start sleepwalking, and then I would need to sleep on the side of the trail. It would take forever. So it's just chat, and we'll be walking. And that was going pretty well. We also came along. David, who's a YouTuber, David Park. We were actually really close the whole race. And then we finally kind of merged around the time I kicked my freaking feet, and then I was really not in a good mood, actually, like really not in a good mood. But yeah, I mean, before that we were chatting. So it was good. But you're right. As soon as I kicked my leg, that was not a good situation. I was in pain. I was not in the mood to chat much. They were chatting a little bit, and eventually David kind of went forward. And then when afterwards, it just got worse and worse. And the issue was that there were still some uphill to go, and my interior tib was kind of being like almost torn after that. And the more uphill I was doing, the less I could do it. I felt I had zero propulsion power in my left leg, like a 0-0. So like it was almost like a slump. Like I was walking like a parrot a little bit. And yeah, I mean, I was like crying and shouting and just like, yeah, it was not good. It was really not good. But I did it.
I do follow David Park. You didn't happen to find his glasses, did you, by chance?
No, I know. Yeah, that was unfortunate. I think it's the first night that he lost them. So, oopsies.
There was a. I'll tell the story because I don't know if the listeners know the story, but the story that I got from social media is that it was really windy and one of the nights, and his prescription glasses literally blew off his face and were gone. So he was having trouble seeing things just because he needed the prescription. So, and they were interviewing him, and he was making his own little reels and clips about his new challenge of just trying to find trail markers and all the things, right?
Yeah, no, he was struggling. And I didn't notice that he didn't have his glasses. Like I thought he had like just a lens, because we would see each other at aid station. But then Nora told me like he lost his glasses, and then I was like, oh, that's why, because when we would see him, sometimes when there's like you go in reverse direction, he would be like, "Who is that?" I was like, "It's Simon and Nora." Like, what do you mean, who is that? But it's because he was probably totally blind at this point. And yeah, I can't imagine going in semi-blind with the amount of rattlesnakes there were out there. This doesn't sound great. I don't know how bad like his sight is, but yeah, it sounds a little sketchy.
Okay, so gosh, 300 miler. Are you chomping at the bit to get into next year's Monster Arizona 300 miler?
Hey, I concluded 300 mile is too much for me, man. I'm definitely not doing it again unless I'm invited. But there's so many cool races that I want to do, and I know that the course will be better though. So like I feel that if I had the choice, I would have done it next year, not this year. But it is what it is. I'm very happy I did it, and actually I think that's a good point, Brian. You know, last year I think was a bit of a disaster, the race, or everything you heard was pretty negative. So I was worried about that coming in the race also, like, well, will there be water at aid station? And how about the bucket? Like, I don't know about that. That, from my experience, and I know everyone's experience will be different, I had zero issue at all for all of the race. All of the aid station were well stocked, and there were people all the time. You could tell that some of them were a little bit more on the leaner side or a little bit more understaffed, but I could tell that like the people that were there were really trying. There's one aid station in particular, I could tell that this poor lady, she must have done like 3 shifts in a row. I don't know how long she had been working, but you could tell in her face, like, she tried to help, like, yeah, can I get you anything? But the way she said it, I was like, can I get you anything? Because you look very tired, my dear. Like, why don't you sit down a little bit? I'll take care of you. Then I'll lay down and I'll pass out. But like, you need to rest a little bit. But I think all of the volunteer and everyone were doing a great job. And I think the organization itself was totally fine. Course marking, it's a 300 mile destination trail. So it was not perfect all the time. So you have to kind of expect that. Like, this is not a race that you expect to follow marker by marker. You expect to follow your watch. You need to know these things. But otherwise, yeah, I was positively surprised, or I'd say like it's on par with what I've seen from Destination Trail usually, which by the way, I'm doing the Triple Crown this year, so I'll see a lot more of Candice and her race for this year. That's a big thing for me this year.
That's a great update. I think that we did. I was a volunteer last year. I ran an aid station at 251. I ran Oak Tree aid station last year, and we struggled. And I've read a lot of aid stations for destination trails and other events. I usually do mile 200 at Boab 240, and I always say it's actually easier to be a racer than it is to be a aid station volunteer / captain. I actually get more sleep in the race than I actually do as an aid station captain. So yeah, I appreciate you giving those volunteers a shout out for putting in their time and earning their keep and working hard to keep the racers moving forward. So that's great.
Yeah,
news.
for sure. And it's easy to lose track that for a race like that, especially the 300 mile, like the people at mile 285 were like you, like 250. They're going to be there a freaking long time. McKnight was probably there around 60 hour, and the last runner will be there at around 150. Like you're talking about like what 72 hours.
Yeah,
and
4 days.
It's a very little team where they're trying to take shift, like sleeping, and okay, you're gonna sleep, and then I'm gonna take care of people. And then it's, of course, somehow magically there's no one for 5 hours, and then there's 10 people all of a sudden, and they all want burger, and they want more burger, and then so you could tell that like the flow would be very difficult to manage, and we wouldn't be able to do it without the support. So really appreciate.
Yeah, there's some magic. I have a 50-mile race on Sunday that's not even like in the mountains, like it's accessible, it's urban, and even that is just trying to figure out like how much food you get out there when you get. I know, Brian, that was something you dealt with last year, like the ice and the water and the food, and how do you keep it fresh, and then when do you cook it? And so there's so many logistics, and I think it takes a patient runner like yourself to just like, I think it's kudos to you for saying like, I got no complaints, because I think when you sign up for these things, you also know like things aren't going to go perfect. Yes, you need to be fed and safe and need to have some of these supplies, but also you have to have that flexibility of like, it's part of the adventure, kind of like it's not going to be perfect, and everyone is doing the best they can, and it's learning and growing. And I know Candice is doing her best to learn and grow and make improvements every year. So it's just fun to see that. But this is quite the distance. 300 is a really big undertaking for runners and crew and pacers and race directors. I mean, it is quite the toll. And I think we're really exploring those outer limits of what can we and should we do.
Yeah. Should we do it is a good question.
So, I mean, you spilled the beans. You're in the Triple Crown. So essentially the Destination Trail Grand Slam with the one you just finished. And what else is on the calendar? Anything else? Or is that just kind of the main focus at this point? I know you're kind of juggling up the injury, and I know you're always chomping at the bit to race, but are you going to just do a bigger focus on just these next three races?
Officially speaking, I have Copper King from West Plate, the 100 mile in Montana that I'm registered. I have Javelina also. I have other races that are on my kind of want to do them, and I might be able to jump in. But one of them that unfortunately it seems that they won't be happening is Cocodona. I was offered a spot basically when I finished the 300 miler, and I said, hey, like I can't. Right now I'm 50-50. I don't want to take someone else's spot, so I kind of let them roll the spot down. I might, if I feel good in 2 weeks, I might try to call them and say, hey, do you still have a spot open? But apparently that's only for famous people, so they will probably say you can also volunteer, Simon. So we'll see. Plan B for that would be to either go there and volunteer to support other runner. I know quite a few people that are running in, and or to do like either Bradshaw or Mingus, like one of their shorter distance, which could be like a good in between for me, especially if I don't feel 100% for doing 250. But I would want to do one day like the 4 times Cocodona to have the 1,000 mile. Like skipping a year means like, well, then you have to come back some other time. But yeah, otherwise it's there's just so many unknown with the injury that I don't want to do like last year and waste a bunch of money registering to race that I cannot do. So I'm gonna take races that are less popular but are just equally as fun, and like it's a good way also for me to share race on my channel that people don't necessarily know as well. And like instead of doing, well, they wouldn't pick me for Western, but like instead of doing Western, UTMB and Hard Rock that everyone knows, I'm going to do the smaller race where, hey, like, it's a mom and pop shop. Mandy, like you have races and probably they're not as famous as some of the big name race, but It doesn't mean that the quality is not there. In fact, for a lot of these smaller events, there's so much love and kind of personal attention to the events that it can make them very, very special. Like you feel the community, the local community, and I want to experience that if my legs allow it. If not, I'm just doing the triple crown. Just
yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing that message. I think that's important too, as you guys have picked up this influence. You are famous in the ultra running world, Simon, and people
not
look up
enough
to you.
yet.
And I think that it's important that we keep that well-rounded message of everything you display. And I've shared this with you and with Nora and Brian. I know we share the sentiment of just thank you for what you bring to the sport. Thank you for sharing the authenticity and being a kind runner, kind to crew, spectators, your fans, race organizers. We know that you see that, we see that, and you embody that. And I think the same message goes for wanting to share other races that are out there and just keep exploring. And people really are looking up to you for what else is out there and what are other cool experiences we can have. And it doesn't have to be the big famous races all the time. It can be really just a cool experience that you have. And so we just value what you bring to the sport. So thank you.
Well, thanks. Thanks for saying that. And it's vice versa. It's the sport is definitely evolving, commercially speaking. It's going one direction for sure. And like from the influencer side is the big sponsored influencer that in fact I'm like, hey, nobody liked this guy, but somehow is famous. That's kind of weird. But for race, it's a little bit the same. It doesn't mean that the big race or corporate race is a bad event. But as a racer and having seen quite a few, you can tell how much love is put into an event and how much it's an event for runners. And I have quite a few examples that I don't necessarily want to list because then I'm forgetting other ones that I'm like, this race is organized by runner for runner. There's so much love into that. And it's usually people like you that just give back to the community a lot. Like, of course, there's revenue that will come with that, but you're volunteering at places, you're around, you're helping people. And I think that's something that gets lost a little bit as we get more and more corporate. You don't expect like UTMB necessarily race director to be volunteering here and there. Like it's their work, and I understand that, but it feels so refreshing when you go to these kind of rooted event where the aid station volunteer is the neighbor and this one is the cousin, and then it's like you're hanging out and you're talking with this random person at the finish line and you're saying, hey, that race was really cool, and then you realize that was the race director, and then the grandma comes over and is like, man, this is so cool. Like you feel part of the community, and these smaller events you really feel it. It's hard to describe it until you live it and you take the time to talk with people, but like it's there, and it's something that I wish more people would experience. But it's hard to advertise that because it's by definition it's the opposite of something you advertise.
Yeah, we experience these big races and there's a lot of hype, there's a lot of people there's a lot of flashes and cameras and drones flying across the sky and all those sorts of things. But sometimes that loses its luster, right? Sometimes the homegrown backyard race feels more authentic and more organic, and just it feels better. It feels good, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Thanks so much, Simon, for your time. We appreciate you. We'll keep an eye and tabs on you. Obviously, Running with Simon on YouTube. What is your Instagram handle? I know it, but I don't know it.
Running with Simon, I think.
Okay, same thing.
Keep it simple.
Hey, there you go. Yeah, so you guys know where to find Simon. Thanks again for your time, Simon. We'll obviously catch up to you soon, and maybe all three of us will see each other at Cocodona in different formats.
Yeah, that'd be great. All right, thanks for having me.
Thanks, Simon.